Yes, what is going on, everyone? Welcome back to GAA Fan TV. It has been a while, ladies and gentlemen. I've been away on holiday the past couple of weeks, so unfortunately, I did not get around to making any videos on this channel. But nonetheless, guys, I am back here today to preview the Super 8s Championship. The Super 8s are back. Happy days. We finally get to see some top quality football yet again. And don't get me wrong, we have seen some great games already this year. Some games, of course, some great qualifier games there just gone. Some very close battles, and of course in hurling as well, we've seen some fantastic games. And if you guys want to see more of that, more previews, more reviews, more match reactions, do hit that subscribe button. Let me know down in the comments below what you think of this weekend's matches. And of course, the Super 8s Championship is here. This is where it really matters now in Gaelic football. And, we'll start off by talking a bit about Group 1. We've got Kerry, Mayo, Donegal and Meath all facing off, of course, in a group. Very interesting group in many ways, of course. It's a very tricky one to call. A lot of people have Donegal as the standout side finishing top of the group. And a lot of people will have Meath finishing bottom. And then Kerry and Mayo are somewhat undecisive. We'll start off by talking a bit about Meath. I think it's disrespectful to just completely discount them out. I think they've had a very successful year. I think to reach promotion to Division 1 in the National League, reaching the final, and now of course reaching the Super 8s as well. Still a relatively young side, still a team that has to learn quite a lot, but certainly a team that is making quite significant progress. And I feel like they will learn a lot from that Leinster final they had a couple of weeks ago. They had a bit of a dodgy game against Clare in many aspects. They were great in the game, but Clare almost pegged them back and almost actually got something from that game. It would have been a bit of a disaster if Meath had have lost that game and not made this Super 8s, considering they probably had the easiest draw that anyone could hope for, really. And certainly for Meath, very talented players like Michael Newman, goal and 6 points in that game versus Clare. He has been one of their standout players as well. Brian Colgan, of course, Ben Brennan. So Meath do have quite a lot of talent, but I think in the overall aspect of things, I just don't see them quite having enough for the likes of Donegal, Kerry and Mayo. They might cause an upset, they might pick up a victory here, and maybe they might force a draw out of one of the sides, but in all aspects of sides, I feel like they're the weakest team in the entire Super 8s that's remaining, and I'd be very surprised to see them pick up anything in this group. In terms of who I do think will finish top of this group, it's a tricky one to call, but I do kind of fancy Donegal in all honesty. They've been able to switch their style and switch their play at different times this season, which is quite heavily benefited them. Of course, when they played Tyrone, they went more back to the blanket defence kind of style. But in the final against Cavan, they were very much able to attack Cavan, to pick them off, and to play very clever. And they've utilised a lot of their big strengths so far this season. Michael Murphy has been absolutely outstanding. Patrick McBrearty has come more and more into the championship as the season has gone on. Players like Ryan McHugh as well has been improving ever so slightly. So Donegal, they have an array of talent. Jamie Brennan's looked fantastic this year as well. He can't stop scoring in front of goal. So Donegal at the moment look like the most complete side and the team that looks most fitted to challenge the Dubs. However, I will be very interested to see what happens when Donegal, start playing more high-level opposition. I know they played Tyrone and they beat them and they looked very, very good in doing so. But were Tyrone very much at their best that day? Probably not. Playing against a Kerry, playing against an informed Mayo team. This is where we'll see more and more about Donegal. Are they really at that level? Are they really the side to challenge? And in my opinion, I think they will finish top of this group. But I think it will be close. I think between Kerry, Mayo and Donegal, I think it'll be a lot closer than people think. Could even go down to score difference or, the potential of another replay. Who knows? We will have to wait and see. But I do fancy Donegal to finish on top. In terms of who I think will join them, it's a very, very hard one to call. I've seen a lot of people very much going with Kerry on this one. But to be perfectly honest with you, I fancy Mayo. And the reason being is that Mayo have come through, some tricky games in the past couple of weeks. They've had some tough tests something that Kerry just don't really get in the Munster Championship. Mayo had that tricky game against Armagh, where, Armagh, as we know, could very well be in the Super 8s if it wasn't for, coming up against this Mayo side. And then, of course, Mayo were able to swallow some of the demons that has haunted them for the past couple of years in beating Galway. Just a huge victory, of course. The likes of James Carr hitting 2 goals in that game. He's suddenly come on the scene. Of course, you had players earlier in the year like Matthew Rowan, who was coming in. Of course, you have the injury to Dermot O'Connor, which is a huge loss to this Mayo side. But certainly they are, improving ever so much more. They're getting better. I feel like they've very much got rid of those demons from what they suffered in that Roscommon defeat earlier in the year. Kerry, of course, on the other hand, look, listen, they had a tricky test against Cork. They would have learned a lot from it. It's probably better that a game like that happened rather than, being completely dominant and being completely fluent and just winning the Munster Championship with ease. But in my opinion, Kerry's defence has massive questions. They've been exploited quite a lot already in defence so far this year. It happened in the league final against Mayo. And it happened quite heavily against Cork in that Munster final. And I feel like sides will exploit Kerry in this Super 8 Championship. And I have a sneaky feeling Meath might even get something from against Kerry, They might even put up a close challenge to Kerry. And I just fancy Mayo. I really do. I fancy Mayo and Donegal to go through. And Kerry, unfortunately, for the second year in a row in the Super 8s, to miss out. And then we move on to Group 2, lads. And in this group, of course, we do have the All-Ireland champions Dublin. We've also got Connacht champions Roscommon. Tyrone are in there as well. And, of course, Cork. So, should be very interesting to see what happens in Group 2. Certainly, Dublin would look like the clear favourites to go ahead and finish top of this group. I will be interested to see how Dublin do against, more quality opposition so far this year. Of course, if we go back to their league campaign, they were actually, very poor in many aspects, this Dublin side. But of course, we do know that Dublin were rotating their team quite a lot, changing their team quite a lot. And I think, we'll find out a bit more about them this time around. Certainly still the, heavily All-Ireland favourites, and still, in my opinion, the side to beat to win this All-Ireland Championship, and favourites to go ahead and make it 5 in a row. Cormac Costello has been Dublin's outstanding player this season. He's really stood up this year. A couple of other years he was very much on the bench and making an impact from the bench. But this time around he has been starting and making a huge difference as well. Of course, Paul Mannion as well has looked very good for this Dublin team. And of course you still have formidable players like Kieran Kilkenny, Dean Rock, and even experienced veterans like Kevin McManaman to come off the bench. So you've got just an array of talent all over this Dublin side, and you would expect them to be the team to finish top. The fact they'll have 2 games at Croke Park as well will really benefit them and give them a bit more of an advantage. It will be interesting to see what happens as the year goes on, but certainly for me, I do fancy Dublin to lose a game. I'm not going to be honest. I have a sneaky feeling Tyrone are going to beat them, because I do believe that game is in Omagh. So I think that will be crucial for Tyrone, and I have a sneaky feeling they might nick that victory. But in the overall context of things, I fancy Dublin to finish top, and I do fancy them to go ahead and make it into an All-Ireland semi-final. In terms of some of the other sides in the group, Roscommon is a team that you definitely cannot count out at all in this Super 8 Championship. They have been, they've beaten some very big teams already this year, and they've not only beaten them, but they've done it in, away from home, basically. They beat Mayo and Castlebar, and they beat Galway at Pearse Stadium. And so very much for this Roscommon side, you're looking at players like Conor Cox, who's been probably one of the best players of the season in, all aspects so far this year. And of course you've also got, huge arrays of talent all over this pitch for this Roscommon side, and this will be tricky for some other teams to try and counteract that. Tyrone, of course, had the, very disappointing defeat against Donegal, but they have bounced back quite well. And one thing about Tyrone, similar to last year, is, they're a team that always gets better as the year progresses, and the Super 8 Championship benefited them quite a lot last year, and it may do so again this year. Peter Hart looked fantastic in that game against Cavan. Cathal McShane looked good as ever as well. And of course, Tyrone are in the media for the wrong reasons at the moment. We won't quite get into that. But Tyrone, for me, will be the team, in my opinion, to progress through to the All-Ireland semi-finals. And that's not to discount Cork or who else are we talking about here? It's completely blank my mind. We can't discount Cork or Roscommon. But of course, I just feel like Tyrone have a bit more experience, a bit more presence, and they will just have a bit too much more. Of course, Cork, on the other hand, look, listen, to reach a Super 8 championship is a huge achievement for them. After getting relegated to Division 3 for the first time in their history. I know it's kind of a lot easier for a side like Cork to make the Super 8s than other counties. Cork are in a very weak province, which means they can reach a Munster final quite easily. And then, of course, they're always just one game away from the Super 8s. But look, listen, they were fantastic in that game against Laois. They absolutely, dominated them in all aspects. Mark Collins, very good player, of course. And then, of course, Brian Hurley as well. So, Cork, they're certainly moving in the right direction. A couple of young players as well. If they continue on that trail, who knows? They might cause a bit of a surprise, but I don't fancy them to get anything from this group. In the overall aspects of things, I do fancy Dublin and Tyrone to make it through. And I'm going to be perfectly honest as well, I do fancy it to be a Dublin-Tyrone All-Ireland final again. I feel like, if my prediction goes to plan, it would be a Dublin-Mayo All-Ireland semi-final, and of course a Tyrone-Donegal All-Ireland semi-final. Fancy Tyrone, in my opinion, just to get the better of Donegal this time. And Dublin just always seem to have the better of Mayo, don't they? So, obviously we'll give my prediction closer to that time, but certainly, looking at it from an outside point of view, and even as a Dublin fan myself, it looks very hard to see how Dublin can be stopped at the moment. And I feel like Tyrone, I just feel like they're the only team that really can do it. Their change of style, the experience of a manager in Mickey Hart. I don't feel like Donegal are just there just yet. I feel like they still maybe need another year to compete a bit more. But who knows? We'll see. We can't discount Mayo either. Mayo are always there or thereabouts, aren't they? So we will have to see what happens. But in the overall aspect of things, guys, that has been my prediction for the Super 8s, my preview as well. Do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let me know down in the comments below what you guys thought has happened. And yeah, lads, I'll talk to you all next time.